I am 34F. I threw my sister the birthday party she deserved, and it might have backfired. Growing up with Rachel, my older sister, was like living in the shadow of a very loud, very chaotic thunderstorm. Rachel is 35 now, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the queen of pranks and friendly humiliations. My 30th birthday is still a sore spot. She surprised me with a karaoke setup after I'd specifically asked for a quiet dinner with family. I had to sit there, mortified, as she and her friends belted out off-key renditions of 80s ballads. The cherry on top, she posted the whole thing online, where it's still haunting me. So, when my family decided I should plan Rachel's 35th birthday party, I saw an opportunity. A chance to even the score, but in a way that would leave everyone laughing, well, mostly everyone. Rachel's always gone big for birthdays, hosting elaborate soirees with photo booths and cocktail bars. This time I told her I'd do something classy to celebrate her milestone. She seemed skeptical but didn't protest. Perfect. I rented a swanky venue, one of those modern spaces with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. I told Rachel it would be a black tie event with a private chef and her favorite jazz musician performing live. The way her eyes lit up when I mentioned it almost made me feel bad. Almost. Behind the scenes, though, I had a very different plan. First, I hired a flash mob. Their routine was ridiculous. Think overly dramatic dance moves to pop songs from the early 2000s. Then, I booked a mariachi band. Not because Rachel likes mariachi music, but because I knew it would be the loudest, most unexpected thing imaginable. Finally, the piece de resistance, a professional clown. The kind who specializes in balloon animals and chaotic energy. I wasn't done yet. I added a few personal touches to make it truly unforgettable. I planted fake plans in the family group chat, mentions of a wine tasting station and a sculpture of Rachel's favorite dog breed, to keep her guessing. I invited a few of her exes, framing it as a nostalgic gesture to celebrate her past and present. None of this raised alarms, because Rachel loves attention and thrives on spectacle. She probably thought I was finally giving her the admiration she's always demanded. To ensure she wouldn't back out, I played it straight with her. I promised a once-in-a-lifetime celebration, and even sent her a Pinterest-worthy invitation. She called me the day before, double-checking the dress code. Formal shake, I told her, knowing full well everyone else would show up in jeans and sneakers. The day of the party was a whirlwind. My best friend, Jordan, had been skeptical of the whole plan but agreed to help. We spent hours setting up. The flash mob rehearsed their moves in the parking lot while the mariachi band tuned their instruments. The clown arrived last, carting in an alarming number of props and an oversized unicycle. I almost lost my nerve when I saw how serious everyone looked in their prep. But then I thought about that karaoke machine and steeled myself. The family was split on the idea. My mom thought it was hilarious, while my dad warned me not to poke the bear. My cousins couldn't wait to see Rachel's reaction. We held a quick family meeting without Rachel to run through the logistics. Everyone agreed to play along, though a few relatives voiced concerns about potential fallout. I brushed it off. It was all in good fun, right? As guests arrived, I felt a mix of excitement and dread. People came dressed casually, just as planned, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The flash mob hid in the kitchen, the mariachi band waited in the hallway, and the clown lurked near the dessert table. I kept checking my watch, waiting for the star of the show. Rachel arrived fashionably late, of course, stepping out of her car in a glittering gown that probably cost more than my rent. She looked like she was ready for a red carpet event, not the chaos I'd orchestrated. The moment she walked through the doors, the flash mob sprang into action, launching into a high-energy routine that immediately turned heads. Rachel froze, her jaw dropping as the dancers swarmed around her. Before she could recover, the mariachi band burst into song, their trumpets and guitars drowning out everything else. Rachel's confusion morphed into disbelief as her ex-boyfriends lined up to greet her. One of them handed her a wilted bouquet, and I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Then the clown made his entrance. He honked his oversized horn and attempted a juggling act that ended with a loud crash. Rachel's expression was priceless, somewhere between horror and sheer disbelief. She tried to compose herself, but then someone accidentally spilled wine on her dress, and her composure snapped. She demanded to know what was going on, but I just smiled and told her it was all part of the surprise. Guests were snapping photos and live streaming the chaos, and the room buzzed with laughter. Rachel didn't find it funny. She stormed off to the bathroom, only to find the flash mob changing costumes in there. I could feel the tension rising, but I stuck to my plan. It was her turn to be the butt of the joke, and I wasn't about to back down. As the clown handed her a lopsided balloon animal, I knew this night would go down in family history, one way or another. Update 1. Rachel's grand entrance was exactly as dramatic as I'd imagined. She stepped into the venue like she was making an Oscar red carpet appearance, her shimmering gown catching the light. Everyone turned to look, some out of admiration, others struggling to suppress laughter since they were all in casual outfits. She scanned the room, clearly puzzled by the stark contrast between her formal attire and the laid-back crowd. Before she could process it, the flash mob sprang into action. A group of dancers exploded into a synchronized routine, flailing arms and energetic spins right in her path. The music blasted through hidden speakers, a mashup of upbeat pop songs that clashed hilariously with Rachel's sophisticated image. She froze, her face a mix of confusion and irritation, as the dancers surrounded her, clapping and cheering. Some guests started filming, their laughter filling the room. As the flash mob ended with an exaggerated bow, the mariachi band took over without missing a beat. The vibrant sound of trumpets and guitars overwhelmed the space, leaving Rachel visibly startled. She turned to greet guests, but the band kept shifting their performance to wherever she stood, making it impossible for her to have a conversation. By now, the crowd was eating it up. Phones were out, capturing every awkward interaction. Then came the exes. One by one, they approached Rachel with awkward small talk, each interaction more uncomfortable than the last. One ex tried to hand her a half-wilted bouquet of flowers, and another mentioned how great it was to reconnect after all these years. Rachel's polite smile grew tighter with each encounter, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. That's when the clown appeared, honking his oversized horn as he navigated the room on a squeaky unicycle. He made a beeline for Rachel, juggling brightly colored balls that kept dropping to the floor. Guests erupted into laughter as he attempted to twist a balloon into the shape of a dog, only for it to pop loudly inches from Rachel's face. She flinched and stepped back, clearly at the end of her patience. Rachel finally found me in the crowd, storming over to demand an explanation. I just shrugged and told her everything was planned to make her laugh. She didn't buy it. Her frustration was palpable, but the guests were having too much fun to notice or care. Someone accidentally bumped into her, spilling a glass of red wine all over her pristine gown. A collective gasp went through the room, followed by muffled giggles. As if on cue, the jazz musician I'd hired took to the stage. I'd promised Rachel her favorite jazz artist, but instead, a mediocre saxophonist stumbled through an off-key rendition of Happy Birthday. The cringe was almost unbearable. Rachel stared at him, her face a mixture of disbelief and fury, before storming off toward the bathroom. The bathroom wasn't the sanctuary she'd hoped for. The flash mob dancers had taken over the space, changing costumes for their next performance. Rachel turned on her heel and marched back out, only to be met with more cameras and phones capturing her every move. Guests were live streaming the chaos with comments flooding in like, "This is the most unhinged party ever. And who planned this masterpiece of disaster?" Rachel found me again, this time barely holding back her anger. She accused me of deliberately humiliating her, her voice rising above the noise of the mariachi band. I kept my expression neutral and insisted it was all in good fun, just like she'd done at my birthday. My calm demeanor seemed to make her even angrier. As if the night couldn't get worse, the lights suddenly went out. A brief moment of silence fell over the room before someone screamed, and the mariachi band, unfazed, began playing even louder to fill the awkwardness. People used their phone flashlights to navigate, creating an eerie disco ball effect in the darkened venue. The lights flickered back on a few minutes later, revealing Rachel standing in the center of the chaos, her once stunning gown stained with wine, and her carefully styled hair slightly disheveled. She looked around, her lips pressed into a thin line, before announcing to no one in particular that she was done. As she made her dramatic exit, the clown appeared one last time, handing her a deflated balloon animal with a sad little honk from his horn. The room erupted into laughter, but Rachel didn't look back. She stormed out, leaving a trail of murmurs and whispers in her wake. The party continued without her, with guests recounting every chaotic moment like it was the best night of their lives. But I knew this wasn't over. Rachel's dramatic exit was just the beginning of what would undoubtedly become an escalating war between us. When the dust settled, one thing was clear: the party had been unforgettable, for better or worse. Update 2. Rachel wasted no time going no contact with me after the party. Calls went unanswered, texts stayed on read, and she even blocked me on social media. It didn't take long for the family to start buzzing about the fallout. Some thought the prank was hilarious and well-deserved, while others believed I had crossed a line. The debate spilled into group chats, phone calls, and even Sunday dinners. Then Rachel broke her silence, not with me, but with Facebook. She posted a detailed rant about the party, calling it the most humiliating experience of her life and accusing me of sabotaging her birthday out of jealousy. The comments section exploded. Some people sided with her, calling the prank cruel, while others thought she was being overly dramatic. Mutual friends started unfollowing me, and I noticed my follower count on Instagram drop by the dozens. The real kicker? Rachel was already planning her revenge. I heard through the grapevine that she was organizing a special event for my next birthday. That didn't worry me too much. What could she possibly do that would top what I pulled off? But it was clear she wasn't letting this go anytime soon. Meanwhile, the family group chat turned into a war zone. Cousins, aunts, and uncles all weighed in, and it quickly escalated into finger-pointing and heated arguments. Someone suggested a family intervention, but that idea was shot down almost immediately. Rachel's allies were adamant that I needed to apologize, while my supporters defended the prank as harmless fun. In the middle of all this, I received an email from the venue. Apparently, Rachel had filed a formal complaint, claiming the party violated the booking agreement. According to her, the mariachi band and flash mob weren't in line with the venue's intended use, and she blamed me for the chaos. The venue demanded an explanation and hinted at possible additional charges. As if that wasn't enough, the mariachi band sent me an invoice for extra damages. They claimed one of their guitar strings snapped during the performance, and they'd lost tips because of the unfavorable working environment. I wasn't sure if they were serious or just trying to cash in, but it added to my growing list of problems. Then came the messages from Rachel's exes. A few of them reached out to express their discomfort at being invited to the party. One of them outright accused me of using them to humiliate Rachel. I tried explaining that it was all part of the joke, but they weren't amused. To make things worse, a guest's live-streamed video of the party went viral. Comments ranged from "This is the best birthday disaster I've ever seen" to "Whoever planned this is pure evil." While some strangers found it hilarious, the family wasn't thrilled about the added attention. The video reached my workplace, where my boss brought it up in a team meeting. He jokingly asked if I was available to plan the next office party, but the secondhand embarrassment was real. The next blow came in the form of a formal letter. Rachel had hired a lawyer to demand reimbursement for her ruined dress and the cost of therapy sessions she claimed she now needed. I stared at the letter, torn between disbelief and frustration. It felt like overkill, but Rachel was clearly playing hardball. Jordan, my best friend and co-conspirator, started expressing doubts about the whole situation. They admitted they felt guilty for helping with the prank, especially since the fallout was worse than either of us anticipated. Their change of heart stung a little, but I couldn't really blame them. The family elders finally stepped in, calling for a mediation meeting. The idea was to resolve the feud before it caused any permanent damage to relationships. When we gathered at my grandparents' house, tensions were palpable. Rachel showed up late, dressed to the nines, and didn't make eye contact with me once. The conversation quickly spiraled into a blame game, with Rachel accusing me of trying to ruin her life and me defending the prank as harmless. The elders tried to keep things civil, but the meeting ended with more hostility than resolution. By this point, it felt like the prank had taken on a life of its own. What started as a silly birthday joke had turned into a full-blown family feud, complete with lawyers, social media drama, and viral internet fame. Apologizing seemed like the obvious solution, but part of me wondered if it would even make a difference. Rachel was already in full retaliation mode, and the damage was done. The prank might have been funny at the time, but it was clear we were just getting started. If Rachel's next move was anything like her reaction, I knew this saga was far from over. Update 3. Rachel's retaliation wasn't just a response, it was a spectacle. I found out through Instagram posts from my cousins that she had hosted a family roast at her house. The invitation list conveniently excluded me, but nearly everyone else showed up. Videos started circulating of staged skits where family members acted out exaggerated versions of my prank. In one, someone pretended to be a mariachi player struggling to escape the chaos. In another, someone played me, gleefully orchestrating disaster while wearing a ridiculous costume. The crowd howled with laughter, and the captions on social media hinted that Rachel had been the mastermind. Not long after, the Venmo requests started trickling in. Rachel sent demands for reimbursement for the most trivial expenses from years ago: $12 for a pizza we split in 2017, $20 for gas money from a road trip I barely remembered. Each request came with a snarky note about how she was finally collecting what was owed. It was so petty that it would have been funny if it weren't so relentless. Then came the fake obituary. Someone, clearly Rachel, posted a mock obituary for me in the family group chat. It was anonymous, but the tone was unmistakable. It described me as beloved for my sense of humor but tragically gone too far with one joke. My uncle responded with laughing emojis, but my mom wasn't amused. She called it tasteless, which only added fuel to the fire. Around the same time, I noticed my name was missing from the family holiday card. When I asked my mom about it, she admitted Rachel had taken over the design this year. The omission felt deliberate, especially when I saw the card and noticed every single family member, including distant cousins, was included. Everyone except me. Rachel's next move was hosting a dinner, under the pretense of declaring a ceasefire. I didn't go. From what I heard afterward, the dinner was more about airing her grievances and establishing her terms than making peace. She reportedly announced that she'd consider reconciliation if I publicly apologized and reimbursed her for the dress, therapy, and other emotional damages. My refusal to attend only made her angrier, and the family divide grew deeper. Then rumors started swirling that Rachel was planning to sell embarrassing childhood photos of me to tabloids. It sounded far-fetched, but with the way things were escalating, nothing seemed off-limits. Around the same time, I realized she had blocked me on all her social media accounts. Mutual friends confirmed she'd been posting passive-aggressive stories about toxic siblings and learning to cut people off. The clown-themed gifts began arriving at my office shortly after. First, it was a bouquet of clown-shaped balloons. Then, a package containing a red clown nose and oversized shoes. A coworker joked that I had a secret admirer, but the packaging and anonymous notes made it clear these were from Rachel. The final straw came when a family heirloom, an antique bracelet that had been passed down for generations, went missing. Rachel immediately pointed the finger at me, claiming I'd taken it out of spite. She told anyone who'd listen, and soon enough, people were calling me to ask if the accusation was true. I had nothing to do with it, but the damage was done. Rachel demanded that I be excluded from upcoming family gatherings until I formally apologized. It was an absurd request, but some relatives actually sided with her. To counter her move, I decided to organize my own family gathering. The idea wasn't to one-up her, but to give the rest of the family a neutral space without all the drama. Surprisingly, a good number of people RSVP'd. That only made Rachel more furious. She posted a scathing rant on Facebook about divide-and-conquer tactics. Mutual friends decided to intervene. They arranged a meeting, hoping to mediate between us. It didn't go well. Rachel spent most of the time recounting every perceived slight from the past decade, while I sat there biting my tongue. The conversation ended with both of us storming out, leaving our friends shaking their heads. As the feud dragged on, I started keeping a list of petty revenge ideas. Nothing too crazy, just enough to keep Rachel on her toes. I wasn't planning to act on them yet, but having the list gave me some sense of control in what felt like an escalating circus. The prank war was no longer just about the birthday party. It had become a battle of wills, with each of us trying to outdo the other. And while I wasn't sure how or when it would end, one thing was certain: the stakes were only getting higher. Update 4. It started with an envelope in my mailbox, a notice that Rachel had filed a small claims lawsuit against me. She was demanding reimbursement for her ruined dress, therapy sessions, and what she termed emotional damages. I almost laughed at how ridiculous it was, but quickly realized this was her way of escalating the feud. The filing listed every perceived slight from the party, complete with a dollar amount attached to each grievance. It felt like a theatrical performance turned legal document. While I was still processing the lawsuit, the family elders called for another intervention. The meeting, held at my grandparents' house, started tense and only got worse. Rachel arrived half an hour late, armed with a folder of printed screenshots from group chats and social media posts, as if she were presenting evidence in court. The discussion devolved into shouting within minutes, with Rachel accusing me of being emotionally destructive and me pointing out her years of pranks at my expense. By the time she stormed out, slamming the door, the room was split between awkward silence and quiet murmurs about how the family was falling apart. Not long after, Rachel hosted a family BBQ at her house. Once again, I wasn't invited. The event looked innocent enough at first, just a summer gathering in her backyard. But then the social media posts started rolling in. Photos showed her wearing a custom apron that read, "BBQ'd but not burned," while the captions took thinly veiled shots at me. "Great to enjoy family without the drama." The irony of her throwing a party centered on excluding me wasn't lost on anyone, least of all me. I decided to respond in kind. A bouquet of clown-shaped balloons was delivered to Rachel's house the following week. The card read simply, "Lighten up." It was meant as a harmless joke, but it hit a nerve. She filed a defamation complaint, claiming the viral party video had damaged her reputation. While I was trying to wrap my head around that, our cousins decided to jump into the mix. They created a TikTok account solely dedicated to reenacting the infamous birthday party. Using wigs, costumes, and over-the-top acting, they exaggerated every chaotic detail. One cousin even played Rachel, complete with a fake wine-stained dress. The account gained traction, racking up thousands of views and comments. While I found it amusing, it only made Rachel angrier. Rachel's retaliation escalated to a whole new level when she contacted a local journalist. A headline soon appeared in a small-town newspaper, "Sibling rivalry goes too far, the party that split a family." The article detailed the prank and its fallout, painting Rachel as the victim of a calculated scheme. The writer even managed to find someone from the mariachi band to give a quote about the unprofessional atmosphere. By this point, rumors were flying. Someone told me Rachel was planning a tell-all memoir titled "Pranked for Life: My Journey to Emotional Independence." It sounded absurd, but with everything else she'd done, I couldn't rule it out. Meanwhile, whispers started circulating that I had forged the mariachi band's invoice to avoid paying them. I didn't even know where that idea came from, but Rachel seemed intent on making it stick. A third family mediation meeting was called, and like clockwork, Rachel arrived late. She walked in with a dramatic sigh, announced that this would be her final attempt at reconciliation, and left halfway through. Before leaving, she declared the family irreparably broken and claimed she needed to focus on her own healing. The meeting ended with everyone more frustrated than when it began. In the weeks that followed, I discovered Rachel had been subtweeting about me nonstop. Her posts described a sociopath in family clothing and included cryptic remarks about cutting toxic people out of her life. Mutual friends started reaching out, telling me Rachel had been contacting them to choose sides in the feud. One friend admitted Rachel even hinted at hiring a private investigator to dig into my financial history. The next big family event was a reunion hosted at a neutral venue. I debated whether to go but ultimately decided I wouldn't let Rachel scare me off. She showed up wearing a t-shirt that read, "I survived my birthday surprise." It was as if the shirt was a walking declaration of war. Throughout the event, she made pointed remarks and exaggerated sighs every time I entered the room. The final straw came when Rachel accused me of leaking family secrets to an anonymous Reddit account. She claimed posts detailing family arguments and drama could only have come from me. While I denied it, the accusation was enough to stir up more tension. People started questioning if I was airing dirty laundry online, which only deepened the divide. At this point, the feud had spiraled so far out of control that it felt like a bad reality TV show. What had started as a prank had become a full-scale family disaster, and with Rachel's latest accusations, it seemed like things were far from over. Update 5. The small claims court date felt like the climax of a soap opera. The waiting room was filled with familiar faces, family members who'd come to watch the showdown. Some sat quietly, avoiding eye contact, while others whispered amongst themselves, clearly taking sides. Rachel arrived flanked by her lawyer, carrying a folder stuffed with what I assumed were receipts and screenshots. I stood alone, trying to project calm but fully aware of the circus we'd created. The hearing began with Rachel's lawyer laying out her case. He argued that the prank had caused Rachel significant emotional and financial distress, citing the ruined dress, therapy bills, and the social media backlash she'd faced. He even brought up the viral TikTok parodies, claiming they had further damaged her reputation. The judge listened patiently but occasionally raised an eyebrow, especially when Rachel described the prank as a calculated act of malice. When it was my turn, I presented a very different narrative. I explained that the prank, while admittedly over the top, was intended as lighthearted payback for Rachel's years of pranks on me, including the infamous karaoke disaster on my 30th birthday. I showed text messages from Rachel where she'd joked about escalating sibling rivalry and referenced the fun she'd had at my expense. The judge asked a few clarifying questions but seemed unimpressed by the dramatics on either side. In the end, the ruling was swift. The judge dismissed Rachel's claims, stating that while the prank may have been in poor taste, it didn't meet the legal standard for emotional or financial harm. There was an audible gasp from the family members in the courtroom, followed by whispers and muffled laughter. Rachel, however, was anything but amused. She stormed out of the courtroom, declaring loudly that she was officially cutting me out of her life. The fallout was immediate. Family members split into two camps, those who celebrated the dismissal as a victory for common sense, and those who sympathized with Rachel, feeling I had gone too far. Rachel made her stance clear by sending a mass email to the family. In it, she stated she would not attend any family gatherings where I was present and encouraged others to do the same. The tone was dramatic, but it left no room for reconciliation. I decided to push forward anyway. For the holidays, I organized my own event, inviting everyone who felt like attending. To my surprise, it garnered more RSVPs than Rachel's competing party. Photos from my gathering circulated on social media, showing a cheerful group of relatives laughing and eating together. Rachel's response was swift. She unfollowed every family member who'd attended my event, deepening the already visible rift. The feud even caught the attention of a local gossip columnist who published an article titled Family Feud or Modern Day Farce. It was both embarrassing and surreal to see our drama summarized in print, complete with quotes from sources close to the family. While the article leaned heavily on the ridiculousness of the situation, it added another layer of tension to an already fractured family dynamic. As time passed, Rachel began hinting at big changes on her social media accounts. She posted cryptic captions about starting fresh and leaving the negativity behind. Rumors swirled that she was planning to move to a different city. Family members were torn. Some hoped the distance might help her heal, while others worried it would solidify the estrangement. Eventually, Rachel did move. She left without much fanfare, cutting ties with most of the family, but continuing to post about the infamous prank online. Her captions grew increasingly dramatic, painting herself as the victim of a toxic sibling rivalry. While I stopped engaging with her posts, they became a topic of discussion at family gatherings, a reminder of the fallout that still lingered. The family dynamics permanently shifted. Separate gatherings became the new norm, with cousins jokingly referring to the feud as the Great Divide. While the jokes helped lighten the mood, the reality was bittersweet. The family felt fractured in ways that no mediation or holiday party could fully mend. Reflecting on everything, I can't deny the unintended consequences of the prank. What started as a silly attempt at payback spiraled into something much bigger and more damaging. While I've acknowledged that my actions might have gone too far, I've stopped short of a full apology. Part of me wonders if it would even make a difference now. The divide feels too wide to bridge. In the end, Rachel and I are both stubborn in our own ways, and neither of us seems willing to back down. The prank may have been the spark, but the explosion revealed deeper cracks in our relationship, ones that likely existed long before the mariachi band or the clown ever entered the picture. Now, with Rachel gone and the family gathering split, I find myself reflecting on the cost of it all. Boundaries are important, but sometimes enforcing them can come at a steep price. Whether or not it was worth it is a question I still don't have the answer to.